But you said the biggest tells aren't physical, but psychological. That sounds kind of deep. Let's open that up a little bit if we can.
Yeah. I think that people often think that when you're talking about tells, you're talking about the things like we talked about earlier, hands or, little motions.
Yeah.
And that's true.
Straightening my hat brim or whatever.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. But eating an Oreo. But
is that a thing that someone does?
No, just in the movie Rounders.
Oh, right. I was like, I've seen that. Where have I seen that? Right, Hollywood
Teddy KGB. Yes. Oftentimes, the most important tells are how someone is feeling and reacting, and if you can tell what their emotional state is. So this actually goes back to when we were talking about tilt. Can you figure out not just your own triggers, but the other person's triggers? Can you figure out, so for instance, almost everyone is going to have some sort of reaction to losing a lot or to winning a lot. Some people, when they lose a lot, they're going to become really cautious because they don't want to lose even more. Some people, when they lose a lot, are going to become extra reckless because they want to gain it back very, very quickly. Totally different, right? Same event, totally different reactions. Can I try to figure out what the psychological dynamic for this person is? How do they react to loss? Some people, when they win a lot, they're going to become extra cautious because now they don't want to lose it. They're like, oh, I have all these chips. I want to guard them. Other people, when they win a lot, they're like, yeah, let's push my advantage. Let's go. I'm on a roll. Let's do this thing. Which is this person?
Sure.
What's their dynamic? How do they react? And if you can start to figure out and pull apart things like that, all of a sudden you have a really good psychological picture of the person and you can take advantage of it. You can take advantage of them in the moments where their emotional equilibrium is off, when they're tilting a little bit, whether positively or negatively, where they're no longer going to be logical, but are actually going to be making decisions that are bringing some of this emotion in. If you can figure out those psychological dynamics, you have such a strong handle on their tells, on the things that are actually motivating them and how they play out in their decision making. That's all you're looking for in tells. You're trying to figure out, can I get deeper? Is this information about the person's decision process?
Earlier, we talked about misinterpreting mood as information, and I meant to ask, is that kind of like when I'm hangry, things look different?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's even, the term hangry is brilliant, by the way. I don't know who coined it, but
I don't know.
they should get some sort of
it's a real
linguistic medal. It's a real phenomenon. Yes, that is exactly why hangry works the way it works, because you actually get angry when you get hungry and you actually get emotional. You're not making decisions as rationally. Can I figure out whether what hunger does to you? Can I figure out what fatigue does to you? Can I figure out what all these different things do to your decision process? If I can, I don't even need to know your physical tells. I can just figure out where you are emotionally and use that. And by the way, I get hangry, but I get...
So this dovetails nicely with what you call the Black Swan Rule, which is don't treat other people the way you want to be treated, treat them the way they need to be treated.
Right, yeah.
So can you flesh that out, or is that kind of what we just talked about, or is there more to it?
No, it's really more that, the assumption that everybody assumes they're normal, when in fact, at best, you're maybe normal with a third of the people out there. So you get into this thing called, well, I'm going to treat you the way I want to be treated. If I'm an assertive, I want answers. So give me answers. And I think I'm treating you the way I want to be treated. I like people to be direct with me. I'm going to be direct with you. Well, that's probably not true. You may not want to be spoken to that directly, that bluntly. If I'm doing a golden rule, I like to be asked. I love clarity. I crave clarity. I once had colleagues say that. I crave clarity. Eric Barker writes a fantastic blog and book of the same name, Barking Up the Wrong Tree. He says clarity is violence. Trying to get clear. Let's get clear about this. It often is perceived as a very violent exchange, verbal exchange. So, you got to be real careful about assuming that how you're wired is how somebody else is wired, because you're going to put something on them that they just might not resonate with.
So we try to read what they need and give them what they need instead of assuming that they need the same things as us.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what sort of principal factors do you look for? You look for the communication style, whether they're assertive, cooperative. What was the other one?
Fight, flight, make friends.
Fight, flight, or make friends? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, really, to some degree, everybody's going to want to be heard out, which is, everybody wants to be heard. That's why I show up in a negotiation. I want you to hear me. So if I start hearing you out, plus it's going to give me a good read on which of the types you are. Have you thought through every detail? Do you pride yourself on the details? Have you done a lot of research on me because you pride yourself on relationships? Are you really firm in what you want because you pride yourself on getting what you want? Those are basically the 3 types. So I'm going to let you start talking, and I'm going to start to get a real clear feel for where you are. Plus, also, when I see maybe some holes, if I adapt to how you are, you're going to let me show them to you. Where does this not add up?
No matter how far I go from this country, whether it's right next door to Canada or Mexico or halfway around the globe, no matter how different the people I encounter may be, what I bring back is that we all are human beings. And as such, everybody I've met anywhere in the world, they all want these same 5 things in their life. We all want to be loved. We want to be respected. We want to be heard. We want to be treated fairly. And we want the same thing for our family as anybody else wants for their family. And if you find yourself in a culture or society with which you're unfamiliar, and you apply those 5 values to those people, I can guarantee you the navigation will be much more smooth and much more positive. So essentially, I just viewed white supremacists as another culture, and I applied those values. And that's what allowed me, entrance into that world. Now, of course, I've had my share of violence. People attack me for, they just don't like you. You're black, or you're Jewish, or you're gay, or you're Muslim, or whatever it is they don't like. They don't want to hear it. Boom, they're on you.
Mm-hmm.
Like you see a cockroach, you just go over there and step on it without wondering why he's there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't ask him what he's doing. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So, I've had a few occasions like that where I've had to hurt some people and put them in the hospital and then take them to court and beat them there as well. But fortunately, those instances were few and far between. Not everybody's welcoming. There'll be those who don't want to talk to you.
Sure.
And that's fine. But for the most part, my experiences have been pretty positive.
What can people's facial cues really tell us? It seems, again, there's a lot of YouTube science on this, but it's mostly been debunked by actual scientists. Is the answer to just refrain from making judgments about other people altogether, knowing how ineffective we really are?
Well, we know there's a certain thing. One is you should probably limit the amount of data you gather in any kind of situation. So Tim Levine would say, if you're trying, you're probably better off just reading the transcript of someone's remarks than actually talking to them face to face if you're trying to figure out whether they're lying or not, because the visual stuff we're getting is just screwing us up. But by looking closely at the way people phrase things, the specificity that they use, whether there's internal contradictions in the stories they're telling, somebody who's making something up may be more likely to contradict themselves because they're inventing a story on the fly. So you probably do a better job that way, but mostly it's about patience. It's waiting long enough so you gather enough evidence that you have something to go on. You're not reacting to some fleeting bit of body language. You're actually gathering evidence and weighing it carefully and drawing a conclusion. So the very thing that we think of as being a failing of law enforcement, that law enforcement very often takes its time, is actually its strength. We can't, people say, well, it took them 20 years to find Madoff. Well, that's how long it takes to catch one of these people, right? You're not going to find out in 10 minutes. You're not going to meet Madoff and say, he's making it all up. It takes a while.
What would this teach us about how to behave, or maybe how not to behave, when we're caught up in some kind of public drama? We get an office scandal, hopefully not a crime, maybe a family dispute. To what extent do we take other people's perceptions into account when we decide how to act, or should we just not even try to do that?
Well, it says that we should be cautious about our initial impressions. We should try and verify them over time. It says that we should be forgiving, or at least we should be aware of the possibility of mismatch. So the mismatches are the things that strike us in the moment. You know, if you're really so upset, why are you looking indifferent and blank-faced? If you're, if you really cared about me, you would have hugged me when I walked in. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
We need to be mindful of how what incredible variety there is in the way people express their feelings and their intentions. That's, I think, that's probably the first thing. And that, that's about slowing down and letting, giving people the space to get to express themselves in a way that's legible.
I turned this absolutely a zero job into like an amazing opportunity. So it was a zero job, just like you said.
Yeah.
My job was just to deliver papers, Warner Brothers documents, if they even it happened. But when I had no one to deliver something to, which quite often occurred, I would just do outgoing calls to people that I admired in the movie business. So I'd call Lou, I'd write a letter to Lou Wasserman. They didn't have emails in the day. And then I'd follow up immediately with a phone call saying, I just sent a letter to Mr. Wasserman, and my name is Brian Grazer, and they'd hear my fresh, excited young voice from fresh out of college. And they always said yes. I mean, I did say, I work at Warner Brothers, this is unassociated with studio business, but I want to meet your boss for the following reason, and I guarantee you I do not want a job. In other words,
That's
indemnified.
important.
Yeah, it was a very essential ingredient because I indemnified them from embarrassment.
And the I do not want a job is important because that's what they're thinking is
Exactly.
this person wants something from me. They're just trying to be famous in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I'm so sick of that. And that's probably why these assistants didn't get fired for letting you talk to their boss in the first place. Although Warren Beatty probably fired his assistant if you talked to him for an hour after that.
Maybe I could ask him.
It's a great speech, though, to come up with people to meet in the movie business because you kind of don't really get to do that very often. And I know you set a goal to meet one new person in the movie business every single day.
Every single day, yeah.
And that's impressive.
So I would, I created, you have to create discipline, right?
Yeah.
And so I was good even though, again, dyslexia, I found a way to sort of I never solved it, but probably, but I found a way, in junior high to read, and I was able to spell. And to this day I can still, of course, read, but it takes effort and discipline. So, but the bottom line is, I created this discipline of every day I would go meet a new person. And so that was just really a function of saying, I'm going to disrupt my comfort zone every single day and put myself in a situation where I have to learn the language of physics, or I have to learn the language of whatever that is to meet somebody so I can communicate with them. Or you, I had to learn about your podcast. I didn't know everything about your podcast, but I realized all the really smart people that you've met, and I realized I think I was able to understand the theme of what you're trying to do. And so you come in, you're informed, and you can be a good conversation. You can be interesting. I think the goal in life is to be interesting, because if you're actually interesting, then you'll be interested, and people will be interested in you. And so that makes the bridge of connection valuable.
That's one of those
You
kind
have
of
to
Dale
have something
Carnegie.
to say.
Yeah, like be interested in other people to get them interested in you, right? Yeah.
Tom Hanks always used to say during Splash, here he is, today's version of Dale Carnegie.
Oh, really?
He was always teasing me. Here he is, Dale Carnegie. What question do you have today, Dale?
Wow.
Yeah.
Had Tom Hanks making fun of you. That's high on it's a
he's
bucket list item for most people, I think.
Look, man, I know you dropped out of high school at age 16. Were you in a position where you were like, I don't need this, I'm bound for greatness? Or were you like, I just hate high school? And I want to know what your parents thought of you at that point, because they might have been like, this is a disaster.
Well, I think it's one of my very greatest negotiations because I just wouldn't take no for an answer. Like I made my mom come in and meet with the counselor and the principal and just basically sold them on this idea that I'm going to be a pro skateboarder now.
The other thing is, like, you've got kids, they're younger now, but if your kid, not your kid, but someone's kid comes up to them in Akron, Ohio, or a suburb or whatever of anywhere where we're from and goes, look, I'm going to be a YouTuber, I'm really good at it, or a skateboarder, I'm really good at it. And it's like, calm down. You skate in the driveway. You skate at someone's pool that has no water in it. What do you mean? This is not a job that exists. Even if it were a job that exists, what are the odds that you, 12-year-old Durdek, are going to be the face of these brands? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Go to high school and work at the Ford Motor Plant, because that's how people make $45,000 a year and raise kids and don't end up homeless. Like, your mom must have been, of course she cried. She must have been terrified, because even though you were good and people said you had potential, it's kind of like saying, he's really good at drawing with crayons. Like, this, he is the best we've ever seen. And it's like, well, that's a novelty, but he's never going to make a living doing that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And look, and I don't think that was the fear, right? So of course, how did I mitigate that fear? Hey, I'll do this. If it doesn't work out, I'll go to college.
Yeah.
Right. So that settled everything, made it real clear, because of course, as you can imagine, a path for a mother in the Midwest is like, your only path to survival is getting a college degree, right? So as long as you keep sending that out there, so much so that, I joke about how it wasn't even that many years ago that she asked me if I had enough money saved for college, and this idea that like, I'm still going to somehow go to college and get an education that's going to change my life beyond this life and legacy that I have already built. You know what I mean? So it wasn't as much, it was also like, you kind of started out like, how would I say it to like somebody else or somebody else attempting to do it? I'm always for like, take the shot, like take the shot, and but understand sort of the pathway you actually have to begin to achieve to see if it's actually working, right? Like, create a milestone. Like, what's the first milestone? Okay, like if I'm a pro skateboarder, and most pro skateboarders are making no money, it's like the first milestone is, can you make enough money to not get a job?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so when I did that, I got guaranteed $1,000 a month to move to California.
How old were you?
I was 16. I was 16.
So that was ridiculous money. Like, you'd never seen $1,000 in one place at any time, probably at that age.
Oh, I mean, look, I felt like I won the lottery. And then as soon as I got to California, people were all over me, wanted to steal me from the company that I was on. Then they eventually raised my salary to $2,500 a month. And it was like doctor money.